environment, climate change, and many other issues. And he will certainly be with us this morning to update us on several matters. Along with Minister Charles, we have the head of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, Mr. Audley Gordon, and of course, the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, is here with us as well. We do have, of course, our media partners joining us online, as well as the heads of agencies from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and some officials here in the audience at the Office of the Prime Minister, to include the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean. So we'll start off with Minister Williams doing the overview of cabinet decisions, and then we'll have Minister Charles giving his update. And of course, it's the Christmas season, and we want to know what will happen in terms of solid waste management and disposal of all your Christmas wrappings. And so Mr. Audley Gordon will be, of course, speaking with us, and then we'll take some questions from members of the media and those online. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. May I now invite Minister Williams to come and do the briefing.
Thank you, Naomi. Good morning, everyone. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Honorable Pernell Charles, who's sharing the podium with me this morning, our PS from the Ministry, PS McLean, Managing Director, Mr. Audley Gordon, and team from the National Solid Waste Management Authority, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll begin this morning with the procurement of properties to facilitate the construction of the Ministry of Health and Wellness's campus. So Cabinet gave approval for the procurement of properties located at 8 Winchester Road, owned by the Jamaica Racing Commission, and a property located at 10 Winchester Road from the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission, to facilitate the construction of the Ministry of Health and Wellness's campus, including the head office of the National Health Fund, which is currently located at 25 Dominica Drive. The next decision of Cabinet is a national program for the environmentally sound management of end-of-life pneumatic tires. Cabinet has approved the national program for the environmentally sound management of end-of-life pneumatic tires that we use in our cars, buses, and trucks. End-of-life tires are those that could not or were not reused for their originally intended purpose and were not retreaded. As you may be aware, tires can be used as raw materials for co-processing in cement kilns, in asphalt mix for road construction, as well as the construction of sports grounds, playground surfaces, and artificial reefs. At present, there is no national program to address the management of the 2 million end-of-life or used tires that are generated in Jamaica annually. Provisions will be made for approximately $43 million per annum over a period of 10 years, commencing this fiscal year. The $43 million will be evenly apportioned in the recurrent budgets of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change to support the execution of the national program. Proposal relating to the development of an offender management policy. Cabinet gave approval for the development of an offender management policy for the Department of Correctional Services. The current system for offender management, which only focuses on correction and probation in the Department of Correctional Services, is in need of urgent and comprehensive reform. The system is deficient as service provisions are decentralized, disjointed, and fragmented in nature. The aftercare or the reintegration support for inmates is practically non-existent, and as a result, there is limited progress in improving the rehabilitative outcomes of offenders. The medium-term socio-economic policy framework under Vision 2030 aspires to strengthen the management, rehabilitation, and reintegration of the inmates of the Department of Correctional Services to contribute to a safe and secure Jamaica. This strategy under the medium-term framework could be supported with the introduction of the offender management policy in Jamaica. In terms of the reports that were received, Cabinet received and approved the following annual reports and or financial statements to be tabled in Parliament. The Bureau of Standards Jamaica, fiscal year 2017-2018 and 2018-2019. The Coconut Industry Board for the year ended December 31, 2019. The Tourism Enhancement Fund, fiscal year 2019-2020. The Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, JANAC, fiscal year 2019-2020. And Micro Investment Development Agency Limited for 2019-2020. Under contracts, Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract on behalf of eLearning Jamaica Company Limited for the provision of 866 content access point solutions for infant and primary schools island-wide in the amount of US $433,519.80, inclusive of GCT, to Royale Computers and Accessories Limited. Content access points are designed to serve digital content in classrooms with poor internet connectivity. The schools will be able to load lessons or material onto servers for teachers and students to access. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of a contract for the supply of the El Hydro Clean Oil Bypass Filtration System to the Jamaica Urban Transit Company Limited, JUTC, in the amount of $251,550,000 Jamaican dollars for the provision of technical and professional advice, materials, and to perform all attendant operations in the implementation of Phase 3 of the El Hydro Clean Oil Bypass Filtration System project with respect to 150 JUTC buses. Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract for the procurement and distribution of textbooks under the National Textbook Loan Scheme of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information 2020-2021 for students at the secondary level in the amount of $64,836,264.04 Jamaican to Kingston Bookshop Limited. Cabinet also gave approval of a contract to National Safety Limited for the supply and delivery of one fire truck for the Jamaica Defense Force in the amount of $751,082.58 US dollars. And finally, Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract to Marksman Limited for the provision of security guard services at the 10 Passport Immigration and Citizenship Agency locations island-wide in the amount of Jamaican dollars $152,200,364.85. That concludes the major cabinet decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Favour Williams, for the cabinet briefs. Joining us as well in the post-cabinet media briefing is the Chief Education Officer Acting in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Kassan Troop, and we also have from the National Solid Waste Management Authority, Mrs. Gail Mitchell, Legal Officer, and Ms. Aretha McFarlane, the Operations Director. And now we'll hear from the Minister, the Honorable Colonel Charles Jr., who will give a brief as well.
Thank you, Naomi. Good morning, everyone. Morning, Minister. Williams, and morning, Minister Morgan. I almost said Minister Gordon, but perhaps soon. This is a very important topic that we're discussing as it relates to the National Program for the Environmentally Sound Management of End-of-Life Pneumatic Tires. And let me start by indicating what pneumatic means. That's the first thing that came to my mind when I read it. And pneumatic relates to that which contains or is operated by air or gas under pressure. So it's just the normal tires that we speak of. It is estimated that approximately 2 million of these end-of-life pneumatic tires are generated in Jamaica annually. We don't have a program focused on addressing the management of them, and so the program of which Minister Williams spoke has started through a pilot last year with us seeing the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation along with the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development collaborating with the Carib Cement Company to advance a program which sees the transportation and offloading of these tires at the Rockford facility for them to be used for alternative purpose. It is to be noted that approximately 20,000 of the end-of-life tires are received at the disposal sites each month. In Riverton alone, we have 9,000 tires per month received, and that's the largest quantity in our country. Now, very important to note is that the tires have serious public health and environmental risk. Needless to say, we know that we have suffered from a range of fires over the years in our country, and the pneumatic tires have contributed negatively to these fires and to the enormous cost to the government and to the people of Jamaica. The pilot phase that was advanced in 2019 saw the government incurring expenses of approximately 4 million Jamaican dollars. And this cost was equally shared by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, as it was titled then. The Carib Cement Company was responsible for the cost of offloading the tires at its plant, and the government covered the cost of unloading and transporting the tires to the Rockford facility. You would have heard the Minister detail the co-processing in the production of cement as an alternative for use of the tires. And the company also indicated that it has a technical capacity to receive and dispose a minimum of 320,000 tires per year in its high temperature kilns. The company also indicated to us that the use of the end-of-life pneumatic tires for alternative fuel in cement production will not affect the quality of its product, as well as the ash as a byproduct from the incineration of the tires, which contains high levels of iron, being incorporated into the final product. Indeed, it may actually decrease the company's cost of production while at the same time reducing its sulfur oxide, nitrous oxides, and carbon dioxide emissions. And you can understand why that is critical to us at the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change, particularly because one of our primary goals is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for Jamaica. Now, to indicate, the program will be phased. Phase 1 will see the disposal of the over 2 million tires located at the Riverton City disposal site. And phases 2 and 3 will see the development and implementation of an action plan to facilitate the ongoing collection and disposal of the tires at disposal sites other than those located at Riverton. In addition, we will be advancing a comprehensive public education and awareness campaign as a component of each phase of the national program. and consideration will be given to the promulgation of regulations under the National Solid Waste Management Authority Act 2001 to govern the management of the end-of-life tires across the island. NSWMA being the implementing agency. And I'm certain that perhaps Mr. Gordon can speak further as to the details. The operational cost to the government as it relates to the negative impact of us leaving the pneumatic tires where they are is enormous. I mentioned before the fires that we have endured. Let me just indicate the operational cost for us to extinguish the fires is estimated at $553 million. It should be noted that in 2015, for instance, the fire at Riverton City Disposal Site alone cost the government $293 million. And that does not include the cost to us, the public health cost related to the increases in respiratory and other illnesses over time, or the adverse impact on the economy as a result of the closure of schools and businesses, particularly those within the industrial belt, as well as reduced traffic to our air and seaports. The implementation of the program then is certainly justified as it relates to the cost benefit for the country. Not only do we see the reduction in cost for the government, but when you look on the environmental and climate change implications of us not doing anything, it's just not a viable situation for Jamaica, particularly because we are a party to the Paris Agreement, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and as such we are obligated as a country and committed to progressively reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, the uncontrolled burning of the end-of-life pneumatic tires, including potentially those stockpiled at our disposal sites, would only serve to increase our country's greenhouse gas emissions and jeopardize our advancement of the climate change agenda. There are several potential environmental impacts associated as well with the long-term storage of these tires at the disposal sites across the country. Compounds are found to be leaching from the tires, and it contaminates our soil, our ground and surface water, as well as the release of pyrolytic oils and other compounds due to the burning. Health implications as well are found, as we all know, where we have these tires sitting down. The round shape of the tires together with their impermeability causes them and enables them to inadvertently retain water and other debris for long periods, and makes them ideal hosts for flies, mosquitoes, and of course increasing the risk of vector-borne diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, and malaria. Additionally, if these tires are not properly handled and transported, they can aid in the breeding and spreading of vectors and non-native species of plants and animals. So, as a country, we are aggressively advancing the programs that will allow for us not only to meet our international obligations, but more importantly, to ensure that we implement and introduce the programs in our local policies and operation that will ensure that Jamaica continues its leadership in the advancement of the climate change agenda, as well as our Prime Minister has continued to say, for us to be leaders in protecting our environment. I just want to close off by mentioning the financial implications. Phase 1, as I had indicated, will see us sorting and handling and transporting tires from Riverton, and that is estimated to be at a cost of $272 million. Phases 2 and 3 will see us doing the same at sites other than Riverton, estimated at $47 million. The inventory of waste tires is estimated at an expense of $3 million, and the public education and awareness campaign over time will see us spending $50 million. And we have a 15% contingency cost for a total of $428 million, which is still less than the cost to the government to extinguish fires. And this is a cost over 10 years. So we're looking at an estimated cost of $43 million per year. The company has invested, Carib Cement Company has invested an approximate $250,000 or 35.5 million Jamaicans to date in optimizing its own procedures and infrastructure to receive and dispose of the used tires at its Rockford facility. And the annual cost to the company to process the tires, a minimum of the $320,000, and for electricity, manpower, maintenance, etc., is estimated at $49.7 million Jamaican dollars, slightly more than the government's investment in this collaboration. I will, Minister, with your leave, allow for Mr. Gordon, if needs be, to go into any further details. As indicated, the NSWMA is the implementing agency. The Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change is in charge of oversight, and we do so in collaboration with the parent ministry for NSWMA, which is the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Charles, for your comprehensive update on that very important matter. We do have our media partners on our Zoom call at this point. May I invite Minister Favour Williams, I beg your pardon, Mr. Audley Gordon, then having sanitized the lectern, Mr. Audley Gordon will give us an update and expand a little bit too on what Minister Charles had to say. Mr. Gordon.
Morning, everyone. I love to associate myself with the very comprehensive report from Minister Charles. Also want to acknowledge his word of prophecy. He said, I'm almost a minister. Yes, the National Solid Waste Management Authority over the years have had to treat with multiple fires at our disposal facility, very costly fires. Costly not just in terms of the monetary dynamic, but to the health of the people, especially in the close environments. We always wanted a policy that would remove from us the burden of caring for these used tires, our end-of-life tires. I'm happy to hear that in this policy there is a phase that will treat with additional regulations, because tires are not only a problem at the disposal facility, but when you go out to do your regular public cleansing functions, you encounter tires thrown all about in backyards and front yards. When there's a demonstration, tires are the first item that is out there burning. And the gas that emanates from tires is very, very dangerous to the health of people in general. And we do this as almost a culture to burn tires and cry for justice, when in fact what we are doing is damaging, creating untold health hazards for our children and the future of our country. So we really welcome this policy. We look forward to implementing it. We were happy to partner in the pilot phase, and we saw the success of that, and we look forward to now expanding that. We don't take kindly to storing 2 million plus tires. That's a time bomb, quite frankly. And so any move in the direction of ridding us of those tires is most welcome. Just want to say, since I'm up here, that the tires are all over Jamaica at our disposal site. And Minister spoke about when we will get to the other phases in this exercise. We want, Minister, if you could, we are now working out the details of the MOU, or the committees are in place from your ministry, our ministry. I know my legal director is here and she's also part of that committee. We want, as we work out these details, to fast track, because it's one thing to talk about the time bomb at the Riverton and the capital city, yes, is Kingston, so we understand that. But there's a time bomb in retirement too. There's a time bomb also in Martins Hill. I was in Martins Hill 2-3 weeks ago. And so we have it all over Jamaica, and so we want to fast track that phase, Minister, and so on. But all in all, this is a big moment for us at the NSWMA, a big moment for Jamaica, because the cost that you spoke about, those $500 million and $300 million fires and so on, it is really the taxpayers that pay for them. And so it's a big moment for the country overall. And so we're just happy that we have arrived at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for your presentation and associating yourself with the sentiments of the Minister. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for those in the media to pose their questions. We ask that you use the raise hand feature in our Zoom webinar that you are on, and we'll be able to accommodate your question. May I ask Minister Williams, Minister Charles Jr., and Minister Morgan if they would be able to just be at the front so that they would be able to field the questions from members of the media who would have them posed. Online, I see the Gleaner, the RGR, Gleaner is a part of the RGR group, TVJ, Nationwide, JIS. So let me then ask Mr. Giovanni Dennis. Mr. Dennis? Let's just see if we can have them up on the screen. All right, I'm not seeing Mr. Dennis on the screen. Let's then go over to Edmund Campbell. Okay, we now have it up. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so let's go to Edmund Campbell from the Gleaner Company, who has a question.
Thank you very much.
Edmund, can you speak for us?
Good morning. Are you hearing me?
Good morning. Hearing you loud and clear. Thank you so much, Edmund. Go ahead with your question.
Very well. Thank you very much. Minister Williams, just a couple of questions before we go to the issues that were just discussed. The Integrity Commission, in a report to Parliament yesterday, says the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries that they should stop with immediate effect the issuance of chicken back and neck import permits under current arrangements, as there was a lack of transparency and fairness in the issuance of import permits by the Ministry for chicken back and chicken neck. One of the issues that was raised in that is the fact that it appears as if while the licenses have been issued to import chicken back and chicken neck, some of the importers are bringing in other products, and as a result, import duties are not being paid on them. Could you, first of all, tell me what steps will be made, if any, to address this concern? That's the first one. And the second question is a current issue that we reported on recently. Will the government officially and publicly address the findings of a 2019 audit on the JCDC anytime soon? Is the government or the ministry, that particular Ministry of Gender Affairs and Culture, will they be reviewing protocols, procedures, and hiring policy? And does the government view the revelations out of that audit as mischief-making? And if you can take a third, I could ask Mr. Gordon if he could give us a status report on garbage collection in the corporate area in St. Catherine. Are efforts being made to reduce the pileup, which clearly occurred during the inclement weather recently?
Thank you, Edmund. That's a mouthful. Let's see. I know Minister Morgan will speak on a few. Minister, and then, of course, Mr. Gordon. So the responses.
All right. So Minister Morgan will speak to the the issue at the Agricultural Ministry. I'll take on the second question as it relates to the findings of the 2019 audit at the JCDC, to say that there is awareness of this audit, obviously. I know that the commission there has been examining, interrogating it, and in due course, there is every expectation that the minister responsible for the JCDC will make a fulsome report. Minister Morgan, I'll ask you to speak to the Agricultural Ministry.
Thank you, Minister. Edmund, thank you for a very important question. As you are aware, the report was tabled yesterday in Parliament, so you would have to give the line minister an opportunity to peruse the report. We respect the opinions of the Integrity Commission, and we acknowledge their important role in encouraging transparency, accountability and probity. Also, you would realize that the minister is also a new minister. He's going in, he's making changes, he's looking at the systems. So I think we should give him an opportunity and give the government an opportunity to assess the report in detail, to look at the systems and practices, to see how they're functioning, look at the recommendations of the Integrity Commission, so that we can make the adjustments where necessary.
Thank you, Minister Morgan. Let's then have Mr. Audley Gordon, who would be able to speak to the question concerning an update on garbage collection. I suspect, Edmund, not just across the corporate area, but across areas that are town centers, so to speak.
Very, very legitimate questions raised from time to time about what we are doing to clear the backlogs. Coming out of the rainy season, we did accumulate quite a bit of backlog, especially in Kingston, St. Catherine, St. Andrew, and parts of St. Thomas. We had some real challenges. My operations director and her team, they came together, they come up with a master plan for 2 weekends of a special operation culminating last Sunday. And we have cut the backlog now by at least 80%. We are down to moving from 200 loads approximately to we are about 20 plus loads now. So we are moving in the right direction to clear up the backlogs. Coming into this week, we were looking at a timeline of midweek. I need to get the update when the backlogs will be cleared and we'll be back on level cleared. We commit to a clean Christmas for Jamaica. And we believe that where we are now, we will achieve a clean Christmas. I just say weather permitting, because if the rains interrupt, it slows the operation down, and that's understandable. Should be understandable. But once the weather holds, we will have a clean Christmas. Just want to say that we know the problem areas run about Christmas time, the heavy vending areas, our commercial centers, and we have in past times deployed the kind of resources in those areas at about this time to ensure that we stay on top of the additional garbage that will come in as the Christmas season intensifies. This year is no different. We have already met with the teams, we've already allocated as necessary, and so there should be no difficulty managing the excess garbage that will come around at this time. So yes, Jamaica can expect a clean Christmas, and we commit to that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gordon, for your response. Let's now go to Ms. Tona Thomas from Nationwide News Network. Tona? Are we seeing
Thank you
Tona?
so much, Naomi.
Right.
I have a few questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please, Tona.
I have a few questions for the Information Minister. The first is, what will be done regarding crowd control during grand markets to prevent mass gatherings and, not threaten a super spreader event? And the second, what will a definitive decision, or when rather, will a definitive decision be taken or tighter measures to be imposed on Western parishes, given the rise in COVID-19 numbers, as mentioned yesterday by the Health Minister? Final two, will the government be rolling out the COVID ticketing system during the festive season? And finally, is the government concerned at or about the stalled Senate saga, affecting the opposition PNP.
All right, so that's a mouthful, Ton. I think that's 4 questions. We've noted them, so let's see if we can go through them individually, and Minister Williams and Morgan will take them.
All right. Naomi, before we go into the answers for the questions, Minister Charles has to leave for another engagement. So if there are any questions as it relates to the end-of-life tires, we could take those, and then we go into the other questions.
Well, let me ask members of the media, can you indicate by a show of hands on our webinar Zoom stream if you do have a question for Minister Charles, so we'll be able to take that ahead of the responses to Tona's questions, and then certainly we'll definitely get back to Tona's questions once there are questions for Minister Charles. Okay, I'm seeing an indication of not. Thank you so much, Minister Charles, for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your being here and giving us that comprehensive report. Thank you so much. Minister.
Right, Minister Morgan.
Minister Morgan will take the questions. And while Minister Morgan makes his way, I do recognize that Giovanni Dennis is now ready with his question, so I will go to Giovanni next. Minister Morgan.
Hi, good morning again. As it relates to crowd control for the grand market period, you would have been aware of the Prime Minister calling out the reserves. You would also be aware of increased police presence across the island. I have seen it in my constituency. There is serious enforcement taking place out there. Persons are being sanctioned for breaching the guidelines, and I suspect that as the police and the army continue their work, there will be significant impact on those who seek to flout the regulations that have been promulgated. So the work of the government continues in trying to encourage citizens, not just by force, but by moral suasion, to recognize that the fight against COVID is something that we all must work towards. It will impact us individually from an economic perspective, from an educational perspective. So it is in our best interest not just to depend on the police or to depend on the army to enforce, but for us to enforce within our own homes and in our own communities. The police will not be everywhere, neither can the army. So we as citizens have a role to play in telling what we know. If we see something happening that places the community at risk, we have an obligation to report it. And we will take action as a government. The police will take action as law enforcement. As it relates to Western parishes, as you would be aware, there's a subcommittee that is convened, which includes the Ministry of Health, members of the Cabinet, and other stakeholders, where the data and all decisions related to how the government manages COVID takes place. That committee meets on a regular basis, and after they meet, the Prime Minister either has a press conference or gives a statement to Parliament on the new protocols that exist and whether there are adjustments to be made. I am aware that the members of that committee, including the Ministry of Health, are contemplating the incidence of COVID across the island and are looking at where adjustments need to be made, if any. So I suspect that if they do make a decision on the Western parishes, it will be communicated to the public after the committee meets. As it relates to the COVID management system, you would also note that the Prime Minister recently announced that it is coming soon. There is a lot to be done in terms of ensuring that the system is effective, ensuring that it is fair, and ensuring that it can be held with the highest level of accountability. I know that the Ministry of Local Government and several other stakeholders, including the police and others, are working on the system. So I cannot say to you definitively that it will be finished in December, but we are working on it, trying to ensure that when it does roll out, it is effective and it is fair and it can be held up to the highest standard. I think that those are the 3 questions. Oh, you know, my grandmother always said, cockroach no business in a full fight. But I'll say it in Queen's English. The government is very focused on managing the country. We do not necessarily have an interest in the issues of a political organization. What we're focused on, We have serious issues taking place as it relates to how do we get our kids back to school. We have serious issues as it relates to how to manage COVID. You yourself raised the issue about incidents of COVID in Western parishes. We're very focused. So we do not have an interest in commenting on the internal political wranglings of another political organization at this time. That is something that they have to deal with. What we're focused on is how to manage the country and how to be a good government. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Morgan. Let's then go to Mr. Giovanni Dennis from RGR, no, I beg your pardon, TVJ. In fact, Mr. Dennis is now the midday news reader on TVJ. Mr. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning, Naomi. Can you hear me? Just checking.
We can hear you very well, thank you. Congratulations.
Amazing. Thank you so much. A question for the Information Minister. One of my questions was also for Minister Charles before he left. Unfortunately, I think he didn't get to ask it. The question for the Information Minister: at a recent roundtable, U.S. authorities again are maintaining their stance that there are dangers of allowing China to build out Jamaica's 5G network. You know, they've repeatedly said, you know, there could be consequences for allowing China to set up that technology, you know, in places like Jamaica and other Caribbean countries. Minister, how does this affect Jamaica's relationship with China regarding 5G technology, and in fact Jamaica's relationship with China overall? The sort of subtle admonitions, well, not so subtle admonitions from the U.S. against this.
Let me add my congratulations as well, Giovanni, to your new position. And with regards to the 5G network, I know that while I was at the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, you know, that is a topic that came up. We've had long enduring relationship with the Chinese government as well as with the U.S. government. And you know, the government from time to time looks at different projects, but I will allow the Minister Morgan to add his comments to that question.
Thank you, Giovanni. I want to echo the sentiments of the Minister. The Government of Jamaica maintains strong bilateral relationships with both the United States and China. We respect the comments of parties and states when they make them, but the government maintains its position of maintaining a positive relationship with our partners, and as such we do not believe that it is appropriate for us to comment on comments by our partners in a forum like this. I think that is something that we would reserve for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who would have close relations and close discussions with our partners, especially on issues of a bilateral nature. So I do not believe that we would be able to effectively comment on that, other than to say our relationships remain strong with our partners and will continue to be strong. We echo that sentiment, they echo that sentiment as well.
Thank you so much, Minister Morgan. Giovanni, I'm not sure, I honestly did not see your hand concerning a question to Minister Charles. I know we have Mr. Audley Gordon from the National Solid Waste Management Authority remaining. You may want to pose that question to him if you wish. Giovanni? If you wish.
Actually, no, it was more a question in his capacity as a member of parliament. So I'll contact him subsequently and follow up.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. All right. So not seeing any further questions on our Zoom webinar platform, let me thank Minister Williams, Minister Morgan, and Minister Charles Jr. in his absence, as well as Audley Gordon, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean, the Acting CEO in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Kassan Troop, and all the supporting members here this morning for their attendance, and of course those on our Zoom platform and those who joined us via live stream. We really appreciate it. It's not too early to say happy holidays. Please prepare responsibly and safely for the Christmas season, and we will be back right here week after next before taking the holiday break for post-cabinet media briefing. Thank you, everyone, and good morning.